The stars had never seemed so cold to Commander Day-Wan as he stared out from the observation deck of Mars Station Prime. He held a steaming cup of coffee in his hands, watching the red planet rotate slowly beneath the massive military hub. It was early morning by Earth time, but out here in space, time meant little. What mattered now was the emergency signal that had woken him 3 hours ago. Captain Jiwoo entered the observation deck, her uniform crisp despite the early hour. She was one of the youngest captains in the Unified Defense Command, but her tactical mind had earned her the command of humanity's flagship, the Indomitable. She stood beside Day-Wan and looked out at the same view. "The signal came from the Andromeda sector," she said quietly. "All 3 colonies. New Shanghai, Europa Base, and Harvest Station. All 3. Day-Wan turned to face her. His weathered face showed the strain of 20 years in military service. "When?" Simultaneously. 47 minutes ago. Jiwoo pulled up a holographic display from her wrist device. The 3 colony markers blinked red. No survivors. No distress calls. Just silence. Day-Wan felt his stomach tighten. 3 colonies meant over 2 million people. Families, children, scientists, farmers who had traveled across the galaxy to build new homes. All gone in an instant. Pirates? He asked, though he already knew the answer. No pirate fleet could hit 3 targets at once. This was coordinated, military, professional. Jiwoo swiped through the data. "We recovered 1 automated probe transmission before it went dark. It captured images." She projected the hologram into the air between them. Day-Wan stepped closer, studying the alien ships that filled the screen. They were massive, built like weapons themselves. Sharp angles, dark metal that seemed to absorb light. The ships bore markings he had never seen before. "Do we know who they are?" "Dr. Hana is analyzing the data now. She should have answers soon." Jiwoo closed the hologram. "Admiral Taeyang has called an emergency meeting. All senior staff. 30 minutes. Day-Wan nodded and finished his coffee. The warmth did nothing to ease the cold fear growing in his chest. The war room of Mars Station Prime was a circular chamber with a massive holographic projector at its center. When Day-Wan and Jiwoo entered, most of the senior staff were already there. Admiral Taeyang stood at the head of the table, his gray hair and stern expression making him look like a statue carved from stone. He had fought in the border wars 20 years ago and had not smiled since. Dr. Hana was already presenting her findings. She was a small woman with quick hands that moved constantly as she spoke, manipulating the holographic data that floated around her. Her specialty was xenobiology, the study of alien life. "They call themselves the Vekthari Empire," she explained, pulling up images of the alien species. The creatures stood nearly 8 feet tall, with thick armored skin and 4 powerful arms. Their heads were angular and harsh, with eyes that glowed a dim red. They control over 200 worlds across 7 sectors. They are warriors by culture, conquerors by nature. "Why attack us?" asked one of the colonels. "We've never even heard of them." "That's exactly why," Dr. Hana said. She pulled up a translation of the Vekthari message. "They sent this broadcast 10 minutes before the attacks. We only just decrypted it." The message played in a deep, rumbling voice that had been translated into human language. "Humans of the lesser worlds. Your kind is weak. Your bodies are small. Your hearts are soft. You do not deserve to exist among the strong. The Vekthari Empire has judged you unworthy. We will erase you from the stars. This is not war. This is extermination." Silence filled the war room. Day-Wan felt anger rising in his chest, hot and fierce. Beside him, Jiwoo's jaw was clenched tight. "Unworthy?" Admiral Taeyang's voice was low and dangerous. "They think we're unworthy?" "They see compassion as weakness," Dr. Hana continued. "In their culture, mercy is a flaw. Emotions make you vulnerable. They looked at humanity and saw our diplomatic nature, our focus on peaceful expansion, and they decided we were prey." "How many ships do they have?" Day-Wan asked. Dr. Hana's expression darkened. "Intelligence suggests their military fleet numbers in the tens of thousands. Maybe more. They have been expanding for 800 years. They don't negotiate. They don't trade. They conquer or they destroy. And they've decided to destroy us," Jiwoo said. Admiral Taeyang slammed his fist on the table. "Then we show them what humanity is made of. We defended Earth during the border wars. We survived the colony plague. We will survive this." "Sir, with respect," Day-Wan said carefully. "We need to be smart about this. They outnumber us. Their technology appears more advanced. If we fight them head-on, we'll lose. What do you suggest? We surrender?" The Admiral's glare was sharp. No, we adapt, we think, we use what makes us human. Daewon stepped forward. They think emotions make us weak. Let's prove them wrong. They think we're predictable. Let's be chaos. They want a simple extermination. Let's give them a nightmare, Jiwoo nodded. Commander Daewon is right. We can't match them in raw power, but we can outthink them. Admiral Taeyang studied them both for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. Fine, you two will work together. Daewon, you'll coordinate overall strategy. Jiwoo, you'll command our primary fleet response. I want defense plans for all core worlds. I want evacuation protocols ready. And I want ideas for how to hurt them back. Over the next 3 days, the Vekthari made their intentions clear. 7 more colonies went silent. Human exploration ships vanished. Long-range sensors picked up massive fleet movements heading toward human space. The Vekthari were not scouting. They were not testing. They were coming with everything they had. Daewon barely slept. He spent his time analyzing every piece of data they had on the Vekthari. He studied their ship designs, their attack patterns, their culture. Jiwoo worked beside him, planning defensive positions and fallback points. Dr. Hana provided endless information about Vekthari biology and psychology. On the 4th day, the broadcast came. Every human communication system received it simultaneously. Every screen, every radio, every device connected to the network. The face that appeared was clearly Vekthari. He was massive, covered in battle scars with eyes that burned with contempt. This was Supreme Warlord Thexral, leader of the Vekthari Empire. Humans, he said, his voice echoing across billions of devices. You have infested 12 star systems like a disease. You build your little colonies and pretend to be equals among the stars. But you are nothing. You are weak creatures playing at civilization. The Vekthari Empire has eliminated stronger species than yours. We have burned 1,000 worlds. We will burn yours too. Behind him, a holographic star map appeared. Red markers showed Vekthari fleet positions. They were already inside human territory. Hundreds of ships. Maybe thousands. All moving toward the core worlds. Toward Earth. We are coming, Thexral continued. We will destroy your worlds one by one. We will hunt down every human. We will erase your history. Future species will never know you existed. This is the fate of the weak. The broadcast ended. Daewon stood in the war room surrounded by silent officers. He looked at their faces and saw fear. Real fear. They understood what was coming. An empire that had conquered for 800 years was now focused entirely on humanity. The Vekthari wanted genocide. Captain Jiwoo broke the silence. When do they arrive at our first defensive line? 72 hours, Daewon said quietly. Admiral Taeyang stood. Then we have 72 hours to show them they made a mistake. Get every ship we have ready. Recall all military personnel. Evacuate non-essential civilians from border worlds. He looked around the room at each officer. The Vekthari think we're weak because we feel. Because we care. Let's teach them that emotions don't make you weak. They make you dangerous. A human protecting their family is the most dangerous thing in this galaxy. Daewon felt something shift inside him. Fear turned to determination. The Vekthari wanted extermination. They would get war. Not the war they expected, but something new. Something human. As the officers dispersed to their duties, Jiwoo stood beside him. Do you think we can win? Daewon looked at the star map showing the incoming Vekthari fleet. I don't know. But I know we'll make them regret starting this. Outside the station, the stars continued their eternal dance. Somewhere in that darkness, the Vekthari fleet was coming. Humanity's greatest test was beginning. The infiltration mission was supposed to be impossible. That's exactly why Commander Daewon approved it. Specialist Jinnah led a team of 12 operatives deep into Vekthari territory. She was small, quick, and carried a personal hatred for the Vekthari. They had destroyed her home colony. She had watched from an escape pod as her entire world burned. Now she was going to hurt them back. Her team traveled in a captured Vekthari supply ship. They had killed the crew weeks earlier and learned how to operate the alien vessel. The ship's identification codes were still valid, which meant they could move through Vekthari space without raising alarms. It was risky, but it was the only way to reach their target. The target was a Vekthari command station orbiting a gas giant in the Helix sector. Intelligence suggested the station contained strategic data on Vekthari military operations. If Jinnah could steal that data, humanity would know where every Vectari fleet was positioned, where their supply lines ran, and where they were vulnerable. Approaching the station, said Taiman, her second in command. He was a former engineer who had learned to be a soldier when the war started. They're hailing us. Jinnah moved to the communication console. She pressed the button and spoke in the harsh Vectari language. Dr. Hana had taught her team enough words to get by. Supply vessel Delta 7. We carry ammunition and medical supplies. There was a pause. Then the station responded. Proceed to docking bay 4. You are late. Understood, Jinnah replied and cut the communication. She looked at her team. We're in. Back on Mars Station Prime, a scientist named Hyunwoo was making his own discovery. He had been studying the biological samples recovered from dead Vectari soldiers. He worked in a secure lab deep within the station, surrounded by alien tissue samples and genetic sequences displayed on holographic screens. What he found changed everything. Hyunwoo called Commander Daewon to the lab immediately. When Daewon arrived, the scientist was practically shaking with excitement. Their immune systems, Hyunwoo said, pulling up genetic data. The Vectari have almost no immune system. Not like ours. Explain, Daewon said. The Vectari evolved on a world they completely sterilized. Then they lived on ships and space stations for generations. Clean environments. Controlled environments. They never needed to fight diseases because they eliminated all diseases from their living spaces. Hyunwoo highlighted sections of Vectari DNA. Their bodies never developed defenses against biological threats. A common human cold could kill them. A mild infection could wipe out an entire ship. Daewon stared at the data. Are you saying we could use biological weapons? I'm saying we could, Hyunwoo replied carefully. But should we? That question triggered the biggest debate humanity had faced since the war began. Admiral Tae-yang immediately called a meeting of all senior leadership. The war room filled with voices arguing passionately on both sides. We should deploy biological weapons immediately, Admiral Tae-yang said. They're trying to exterminate us. We should use every weapon we have. But that makes us like them, Captain Jiwoo countered. Biological weapons don't distinguish between soldiers and civilians. We'd be killing everyone, including Vectari who might not even support this war. There are no innocent Vectari, the Admiral snapped. They all celebrate our deaths. Dr. Hana shook her head. That's not true. I've been monitoring their communications. There are dissenting voices. Scientists, merchants, civilians who think this war is wasteful. If we use biological weapons, we lose any moral high ground. We become the monsters they claim we are. The argument continued for hours. Daewon listened to every voice, every perspective. Finally, he made a decision. We develop the weapons, he said, but we don't deploy them. Not yet, we keep them as a last resort. If humanity faces extinction, if we have no other choice, then we use them. But only then. Admiral Tae-yang wasn't happy, but he accepted the decision. The biological weapons went into development but remained locked away, waiting. Meanwhile, on the planet Sanctuary, Colonel Wu Jin was fighting a different kind of battle. The Vectari had landed ground forces, trying to take the colony through direct assault. Wu Jin commanded the defense with 5,000 human soldiers against 50,000 Vectari warriors. The odds were impossible. The Vectari were bigger, stronger, and had better armor. But Wu Jin had something they didn't. He had soldiers fighting for their homes. The battle for Sanctuary City lasted 6 days. The Vectari pushed forward with brute force, expecting humans to break and run. Instead, they found humans who fought from every building, every street corner, every rooftop. Colonel Wu Jin used the city itself as a weapon. Booby traps, ambushes, sniper positions. The Vectari wanted direct combat, but the humans gave them chaos. On the 6th day, Vectari casualties reached 20,000. The humans had lost 3,000, but they still held the city. The Vectari commander, frustrated and enraged, called for orbital bombardment. He was willing to destroy the entire colony just to kill the defenders. But before he could give the order, Captain Jiwoo arrived with the human fleet. Her ships had been waiting for this moment, hidden behind Sanctuary's moon. The moment the Vectari ships moved into bombardment position, Jiwoo struck. It wasn't a fair fight. Jiwoo didn't want fair. She wanted victory. Her ships used the new tactics that engineer Sung-ho had developed. Swarms of drones attacked from multiple directions. Fighters piloted by Bora and her squadron cut through Vectari formations. The screamer weapons jammed enemy communications. The Vecthari fleet, caught by surprise and unable to coordinate, took massive damage. 8 ships destroyed, 12 more crippled. The survivors fled, abandoning their ground forces. Colonel Wu Jin watched from the ground as enemy ships burned in the sky above. His soldiers cheered. They had held. Against impossible odds they had held. The victory at Sanctuary became a symbol. News spread across human space. The Vecthari could be beaten, not just in ambushes or tricks, but in real battles. The species that had conquered for 800 years had suffered their first major defeat. Far away in Vecthari High Command, Supreme Warlord Thexral received the news with cold fury. He called his generals to him and demanded an explanation. How could weak humans defeat superior Vecthari forces? His generals had no good answers. They made excuses. They blamed the local commander. They promised it wouldn't happen again. Thexral executed 3 of them on the spot to encourage the others to do better. But the truth was becoming clear, even to the Vecthari. This war was not going as planned. The quick extermination they expected was turning into a long, costly conflict. Human tactics were unpredictable. Human determination was stronger than anticipated, and humans kept adapting, kept changing, kept finding new ways to hurt them. Specialist Jinnah and her team completed their mission. They infiltrated the command station, killed the guards, and stole the data cores containing Vecthari strategic information. On their way out, they planted explosives throughout the station. As their ship pulled away, the station exploded in a brilliant flash. When Jinnah returned to Mars Station Prime, she delivered the data cores to Commander Daewon personally. He took them with something close to reverence. "How many did you lose?" he asked. 3, Jinnah replied quietly. Taemin stayed behind to buy his time. 2 others died fighting guards, Daewon nodded. Their sacrifice matters. This data will save millions. The stolen information was more valuable than anyone had hoped. It contained complete details on Vecthari fleet positions, supply routes, manufacturing centers, and fuel depots. It showed where they were strong and, more importantly, where they were weak. Engineer Sung Ho used the data to plan Operation Hellstorm. It was the most ambitious attack humanity had ever attempted. Simultaneous strikes on 50 Vecthari military installations across 12 sectors. Every human ship, every drone, every weapon would be deployed at once. "It's everything we have," Sung Ho explained to the command staff. "If this fails, we'll have nothing left to defend with. But if it succeeds, we'll cripple their ability to wage war." Admiral Tae-Yang looked at the plan with a mixture of fear and pride. "It's insane." "Yes," Commander Daewon agreed. "But so is fighting an 800-year-old empire that wants to exterminate us. We've been insane since this war started. Let's be insane one more time." The preparation took weeks. Every ship was armed and fueled. Lieutenant Bora trained her pilots until they could fly the attack patterns in their sleep. Captain Jiwoo coordinated with fleet commanders across human space. Dr. Hana analyzed each target, providing information on Vecthari defenses and vulnerabilities. The day before the operation launched, Daewon stood in the observation deck, looking out at the assembled fleet. Hundreds of ships, thousands of fighters, millions of drones. It was beautiful and terrifying. Jinnah joined him as she often did in quiet moments. They had become friends through the war, 2 people who had lost everything and decided to fight back. "Do you think we'll win tomorrow?" she asked. Daewon thought about all the battles they had fought, all the people they had lost, all the impossible victories they had achieved. He thought about Yuna, who died believing in peace. He thought about Colonel Wu Jin, holding a city against overwhelming odds. He thought about every human who refused to give up even when extinction seemed certain. The first battle was a disaster. Captain Jiwoo watched from the bridge of the Indomitable as 3 human destroyers exploded in brilliant flashes of light. The Vecthari dreadnought that killed them barely showed damage. Its shields absorbed the human weapons like they were nothing more than raindrops. "All ships fall back to defensive position Beta," she ordered, her voice steady despite the chaos around her. "Do not engage directly. I repeat, do not engage directly." The human fleet retreated, leaving the burning wreckage of 5 ships behind. The Vecthari didn't even chase them. They simply continued forward, steady and unstoppable, like a massive wall of metal moving through space. In the war room back on Mars Station Prime, Commander Daewon watched the battle reports come in. His worst fears were confirmed. The Vecthari ships were tougher, their weapons hit harder, and their shields could absorb punishment that would destroy human vessels. In a straight fight, humanity was outmatched. "We lost 8 ships in the first engagement," Admiral Taeyang said, his voice hard. "They lost 0. 0, Day 1. We didn't even scratch them." "Then we stopped fighting fair," Day 1 replied. Over the next month, 15 human colonies fell. The Vecthari moved like a dark tide across human space, unstoppable and merciless. Billions of people evacuated their homes, fleeing toward the core worlds. Ships packed with refugees streamed toward Earth, Mars, and the other central systems. The highways of space became crowded with desperate people carrying whatever they could save. Day 1 met with a young engineer named Sung Ho in one of the station's design labs. Sung Ho was barely 30 years old, with messy hair and clothes that looked like he had slept in them for 3 days. He probably had, but his eyes were sharp and alert. "Show me what you've got," Day 1 said. Sung Ho pulled up holographic designs. "Conventional weapons don't work. We've established that. So I started thinking about unconventional weapons, things the Vecthari won't expect." He showed Day 1 designs for minefields that could move, drones that could kamikaze into enemy ships, and a weapon he called the Screamer that would flood Vecthari communication systems with noise. "The Vecthari fight with honor," Sung Ho explained. "They believe in direct combat, ship against ship, strength against strength. So let's fight without honor. Let's be sneaky. Let's be annoying. Let's be everything they think is beneath them." Day 1 smiled for the first time in weeks. "Build it. Build all of it." Meanwhile, a diplomat named Yuna was attempting the impossible. She led a delegation to meet with Vecthari representatives, hoping to negotiate peace. She was a small woman with a gentle voice, but she carried herself with dignity. She believed that even the Vecthari could be reasoned with. She was wrong. The Vecthari commander she met with listened to her plea for peace. He listened to her explain that humanity wanted no conflict. He listened to her offer concessions and compromises. Then he stood up, walked over to her, and killed her with his bare hands. He broadcast the execution across Vecthari space as entertainment. When news reached Mars Station Prime, the mood turned dark. Yuna had been beloved. She had represented the best of humanity, the hope that conflicts could be resolved with words instead of weapons. Her death proved the Vecthari would accept nothing but total extermination. Admiral Taeyang called Day 1 to his office. The old admiral looked tired, older than his years. "No more peace talks," he said. "No more mercy. They want a war of extermination? They'll get one." "Agreed," Day 1 said. "But we fight smart. Jiwoo has a plan." Captain Jiwoo's plan was risky. The Vecthari fleet was pushing toward the Titan Belt, a region filled with asteroids and debris orbiting Saturn. It was a strategic location that controlled access to the inner solar system. If the Vecthari took it, Earth would be within their reach. Jiwoo positioned the human fleet in a way that looked weak and scattered. She made it appear as if humanity was making a desperate last stand with whatever ships they had left. The Vecthari, confident and arrogant, pushed forward eagerly. They wanted to crush this pathetic resistance and move on to Earth. But Jiwoo had hidden ships throughout the asteroid field. She had placed Sung Ho's new mines in careful patterns. She had positioned weapons on the larger asteroids themselves. When the Vecthari fleet entered the belt, she triggered her trap. Explosions erupted throughout the Vecthari formation. Asteroids that had seemed natural suddenly revealed themselves as weapon platforms. Hidden human ships appeared from behind debris and fired at point-blank range, then disappeared again into the field. The mobile mines swarmed Vecthari ships, attaching to their hulls and detonating. The Screamer weapons activated, filling Vecthari communications with horrible noise that disoriented their coordination. Ships collided with asteroids they couldn't navigate around. Others fired at phantom signals, wasting ammunition on nothing. For the first time, the Vecthari suffered losses. Not many, but enough. 3 of their ships were destroyed. 7 more were damaged. The rest retreated, confused and angry. On the Indomitable's bridge, Jiwoo allowed herself a small smile. "All ships maintain positions. Let them remember this." A young pilot named Bora had been part of that battle. She flew one of the new fighter craft that Sung Ho's team had designed. They were small, fast, and could operate in tight spaces where the big Vecthari ships couldn't maneuver. Her squadron had darted through the asteroid field like angry hornets, striking and vanishing. After the battle, she met with Jiwoo to report. "Captain, the new tactics work. The Vecthari expect us to fight like them. Big ships against big ships. When we hit them with small, fast attacks, they don't know how to respond. Good, Jiwoo said, because we're going to do a lot more of that. Dr. Hana made a crucial discovery during this time. She had been studying every piece of Vectari biology and culture she could find. She spent sleepless nights analyzing their military history, their conquered worlds, their entire 800-year expansion. She called Daewon to her lab in the middle of the night. Her eyes were red from exhaustion but bright with excitement. They've never lost, she said without preamble. In 800 years, the Vectari have never lost a war. They've never even lost a major battle. I know, Daewon said. That's what makes this so difficult. No, you don't understand. Dr. Hana pulled up historical records. They've never lost because every enemy they've faced fought the same way. Direct combat, honor duels, strength versus strength. Every species they conquered tried to match their military power and failed. So they've never faced an enemy that uses deception. They've never fought someone who adapts and changes tactics. They've never encountered psychological warfare or guerrilla strategies. Dr. Hana smiled. They think those things are beneath them. They think only the weak use tricks. Daewon understood, which means they have no defense against it. Exactly. Their entire military doctrine is based on overwhelming force and direct assault. If we keep changing how we fight, keep using tactics they consider dishonorable, we can keep them off balance. News of the victory at Titan Belt spread through human space like wildfire. It wasn't a major victory, but it was the first time humans had hurt the Vectari. People who had been fleeing in terror started to feel hope. Maybe humanity could survive this. Maybe they could fight back. But the Vectari were not impressed. Supreme Warlord Thexril sent a new message. His face appeared on screens across human space, twisted with rage. You think your tricks at Titan give you hope? He snarled. You think hiding among rocks makes you warriors? You are still weak. You are still prey. For your insult, we will burn 10 of your worlds. For every Vectari ship you damage, we will kill 1 billion humans. This is the price of your pathetic resistance, and he meant it. Over the next 2 weeks, Vectari fleets targeted civilian colonies. Worlds that had no military value, no strategic importance. They simply wanted to punish humanity for daring to fight back. Millions died in orbital bombardments. The human leadership met in emergency session. Admiral Taeyang wanted to respond with equal brutality. We should strike their civilian worlds. Make them feel the same pain. No, Daewon said firmly. That's exactly what they want. They want us to become like them. If we target civilians, we lose what makes us different. We lose what makes us human. Then what do? The Admiral demanded. Captain Jiwoo stood. We hit their military harder. We make every attack on civilians cost them dearly in military assets. We make this war so expensive that even they can't afford to continue. Engineer Sung Ho entered with new designs. I've been working on something bigger. Drones controlled by artificial intelligence that can mimic human tactical thinking. We can build thousands of them. The Vectari will have to fight an enemy that matches their numbers but thinks like us. Lieutenant Bora added her own suggestion. My pilots have been developing swarm tactics. If we coordinate enough small ships, we can overwhelm even their largest vessels. It worked once. It can work again. Daewon looked at each of them. These were the people who would save humanity. Not by being stronger than the Vectari, but by being smarter, by being adaptable, by being human. All right, he said. No more defensive fighting. We go on the offensive. We hit them everywhere at once. We make them afraid to enter human space. Admiral Taeyang nodded slowly. Do it. Show them what happens when you underestimate humanity. The Vectari Empire was crumbling from within. Commander Daewon received reports every day from intelligence operatives across Vectari space. The news was better than he had dared to hope. Species that the Vectari had conquered decades ago were rising in rebellion. They saw humanity fighting back successfully and realized the Empire was not invincible. If humans could resist, maybe they could too. The Kelthani, a reptilian species enslaved for 40 years, attacked their Vectari overseers and seized 3 industrial worlds. The Prexen, insect-like beings forced to work in mining colonies, sabotaged production facilities, and fled into deep space. Dozens of other conquered peoples began acts of defiance, from small sabotage to full revolts. The Vectari Empire, which had seemed so strong and unified, was suddenly fighting wars on 100 fronts. And every day they grew weaker. Their economy is collapsing, Dr. Hana explained during a briefing. She displayed graphs and charts showing Vectari resource production falling dramatically. They built their empire on conquest and slave labor. Now the slaves are rebelling and the conquests have stopped. They can't sustain their military without that economic base. Admiral Taeyang studied the data with satisfaction. Good. Let them feel what it's like to lose everything. But Commander Daewon was thinking bigger. He assembled the largest human fleet ever created. Every available warship, every carrier, every support vessel. It was time to take the war directly into Vectari territory. No more defensive fighting. No more waiting for them to attack. Humanity was going on the offensive. Captain Jiwoo would lead the fleet. Her tactical genius had become legendary, not just among humans but across the galaxy. Even other alien species talked about the human captain who had never lost a battle. Vectari soldiers feared her name. Some called her the ghost captain because she seemed to appear from nowhere and disappear just as quickly. On the bridge of the Indomitable, Jiwoo addressed her officers. We're going to strike at the heart of the Empire. We're going to show them that nowhere is safe. We're going to make them understand that this war was the worst decision they ever made. The fleet jumped into hyperspace, heading toward Vectari Prime Sector. It was a bold move. Suicidal, some said. But Jiwoo had learned something important during this war. The Vectari respected strength. They understood power. If humanity wanted to truly defeat them, they needed to prove they were the stronger species. Meanwhile, Dr. Hana made an unexpected contact. A Vectari scientist named Velkoth reached out through encrypted channels. He and others like him opposed the war from the beginning. They were researchers, not warriors, and they saw the conflict as wasteful and destructive. The Empire is dying, Velkoth told Dr. Hana during their secret communication. Our resources are exhausted. Our people are tired. But Supreme Warlord Thexrel refuses to see it. He would rather let the Empire burn than admit defeat. Can you help us? Dr. Hana asked. I can give you information, Velkoth replied. Military codes. Defense grid weaknesses, but I cannot stop the war. Only Thexrel can do that, and he will never surrender. Dr. Hana thanked him and immediately passed the information to Commander Daewon. Every piece of intelligence helped. Every advantage mattered. In space above a Vectari fortress world, Lieutenant Bora led her fighter squadrons in the most dangerous mission of her career. The world below was protected by the strongest planetary shields the Vectari had. Conventional weapons couldn't penetrate them. But Bora had a plan. Her fighters carried specialized bombs designed by engineer Sung Ho. They had to fly through a narrow gap in the shield system, drop their payload on the shield generators, and escape before the entire defense grid came alive. The timing had to be perfect. One mistake would mean death for her entire squadron. All wings, stay tight, Bora commanded over the communication channel. Follow my lead exactly. No deviations. Her fighter dove toward the planet and 40 others followed in perfect formation. Vectari defense turrets opened fire, filling space with deadly energy beams. Bora twisted and weaved through the attacks, her instincts guiding her through impossible maneuvers. Behind her, her pilots matched every move. They reached the gap. It was smaller than the simulations predicted. Bora's hands moved across the controls with practiced precision. She slipped through with centimeters to spare. Her squadrons followed one by one, each pilot trusting their training and their leader. Bombs away, Bora shouted, releasing her payload directly onto the shield generator. The other pilots did the same. Then they accelerated hard, racing back through the gap before it could close. Behind them, the generators exploded. The planetary shields flickered and died. The fortress world was now vulnerable to Captain Jiwoo's fleet waiting above. This is Jiwoo to all ships. The captain's voice came over the fleet channel. The shields are down. Begin bombardment of military targets only. I repeat, military targets only. We are not here to harm civilians. The human fleet opened fire with precision. They destroyed weapons platforms, military bases, and ship construction facilities, but they carefully avoided civilian areas. This was not revenge. This was war, and humans still fought with honor even when their enemies did not. On the planet below, Vectari military commanders watched in horror as their defenses crumbled. For the first time, a Vectari core world was under attack. The species that had conquered for 800 years was now experiencing conquest themselves. Supreme Warlord Thexrel received the news in his command chamber. His fortress world, one of the Empire's most heavily defended locations, had fallen to human attack. It seemed impossible, yet the reports were clear. The humans had destroyed their defenses and occupied the orbital space above the planet. "Send reinforcements," he ordered. "I want every available ship sent to reclaim that world." But his generals hesitated. One of them, an older warrior named Kexfor, spoke carefully. "Supreme Warlord, if we send ships to reclaim that world, we leave others vulnerable. The humans are attacking everywhere. We no longer have enough forces to defend everything. Then what do you suggest?" Thexrel demanded. Kexivor took a breath. "I suggest we consider terms. A ceasefire, negotiations." Thexrel's eyes blazed with fury. "Never. The Vectari do not negotiate with prey." "They are not prey," Kexivor said quietly. "They never were. We made a mistake, Supreme Warlord. We underestimated them. And now we are paying the price for saying those words." Thexrel killed him. He struck down his own general in front of the entire command staff. It was meant to show strength, to prove that the Vectari would never surrender. But instead it showed desperation. It showed fear. The other generals saw it. They said nothing, but they understood. Their empire was losing, and their leader had become irrational. Back on Mars Station Prime, engineer Sung Ho presented his final masterpiece. The Phantom Protocol had reached its full potential. Thousands of AI-controlled drones that could think and fight like human pilots. Each one programmed with tactics learned from the war. Each one capable of independent thought and coordination. "They're not just machines," Sung Ho explained to Commander Daewon. "They learn from every battle. They adapt like we do. They're essentially digital humans when it comes to combat thinking." Daewon watched a simulation of the Phantom Protocol in action. The drones moved like a living thing, flowing around obstacles, coordinating attacks without needing commands, adapting to enemy tactics in real time. It was beautiful and terrifying. "Deploy them," Daewon ordered. "Let's show the Vectari what humanity can create." The Phantom Protocol drones launched across multiple sectors simultaneously. They attacked Vectari supply lines, cutting the Empire's forces off from fuel and ammunition. They raided communication stations, blinding Vectari commanders. They destroyed isolated ships and installations, always vanishing before reinforcements could arrive. The Vectari had no answer for them. Every time they adapted their defenses, the drones learned and adapted faster. It was like fighting ghosts that learned from every mistake. Admiral Taeyang watched the reports with grim satisfaction. The Vectari were experiencing what humanity had felt at the start of the war. The feeling of being hunted, the feeling of being helpless. The feeling that extinction was coming and nothing could stop it. But as the Admiral celebrated these victories, he noticed something in Commander Daewon's expression. Not satisfaction, not joy, something else, something thoughtful. "What's wrong?" the Admiral asked. "We're winning." "I know," Daewon replied. "That's what worries me." "Explain." Daewon pulled up casualty reports. Not human casualties, Vectari casualties. The numbers were staggering. Millions dead, entire fleets destroyed, worlds burned. The Vectari Empire was not just losing, it was being destroyed. "We have the power to exterminate them," Daewon said quietly. "Engineer Sung Ho's weapons, the Phantom Protocol, our tactical advantage, and we still have those biological weapons in storage. If we wanted to, we could wipe out the Vectari species completely." "Good," Admiral Taeyang said. "They tried to exterminate us, I know. But if we do it, how are we different from them? They started this war because they saw us as weak and unworthy. If we become genocidal conquerors, we prove them right. We become the monsters they claimed we were." The Admiral was silent for a long moment. "So what do you suggest?" "I suggest we give them one chance." The week passed slowly. Each day, humanity waited for the Vectari response. Each day, Commander Daewon wondered if they would choose survival or death. The human fleet remained on high alert, ready to launch the final assault if necessary. The biological weapons sat in their secure storage, waiting to be deployed. On the 6th day, a Vectari ship approached Mars Station Prime. It was not a warship. It was a diplomatic vessel, old and worn, carrying white flags of truce. The entire station went silent as the ship docked. No one had expected this. No one had truly believed the Vectari would surrender. A delegation emerged from the ship. 6 Vectari, unarmed and walking slowly. They were not led by Supreme Warlord Thexrel. Instead, the leader was a general named Vecnor, a scarred veteran who looked tired and beaten. Behind him were scientists, administrators, and one younger warrior who kept his head down in shame. Commander Daewon met them in the main conference chamber. Captain Jiwoo stood at his right, Admiral Tae Yang at his left. Dr. Hana was there, as was Engineer Sung-ho, Specialist Jinna, Lieutenant Bora, and every other key figure in humanity's leadership. They wanted the Vectari to see who had defeated them. General Vecnor stopped before the human delegation. For a long moment he simply stood there, looking at the humans who had destroyed his empire. Then slowly he knelt. The other Vectari followed, all 6 of them dropping to their knees before humanity. "We surrender," Vecnor said, his voice heavy with defeat. "We beg for mercy. We beg for the survival of our species." Admiral Tae Yang's face was stone. "You expect mercy? After what you did to us?" "No," Vecnor said honestly. "We expect nothing. We deserve nothing, but we beg anyway because we have nothing else left." Commander Daewon stepped forward. "Where is Supreme Warlord Thexral?" "Dead," Vecnor replied. "I killed him myself 3 days ago." He refused to surrender. He would have led our entire species to extinction rather than admit defeat. So I and other generals removed him from power. Now I am here, on behalf of what remains of the Vectari, to accept whatever terms you offer. Captain Jiwoo studied the kneeling aliens carefully. "Why did you start this war?" "We never threatened you. We never even knew you existed." Vecnor looked up at her. "Because we were afraid." "Afraid?" Dr. Hana stepped forward. "You conquered 200 worlds. You had the strongest military in the galaxy. What could you possibly fear from us?" "Your potential," Vecnor said quietly. "We studied humanity before we attacked. We saw your history. 5,000 years ago, you were primitive beings living in caves. Now you travel between stars. You advance faster than any species we have ever encountered. You adapt, you innovate, you never stop growing." He paused, his voice filled with something like regret. "We calculated that if we gave you another 500 years, you would surpass us. You would become the dominant power in the galaxy, and we could not accept that. We built our empire on being the strongest. The idea that another species could be stronger terrified us. So you tried to exterminate us first," Daewon said. "Yes, it was supposed to be quick, easy. You were smaller, weaker, less advanced. We thought you would fall in months." Vecnor looked at the floor. "We were wrong about everything. We underestimated your determination. We underestimated your creativity. Most of all, we underestimated your capacity to fight for each other. We saw your compassion as weakness. We learned too late that it was your greatest strength." Admiral Tae Yang walked slowly around the kneeling Vectari. "You killed billions of us. You destroyed colonies full of children. You murdered our diplomats. And now you want mercy?" "We do not deserve it," Vecnor said. "But we ask for it anyway. Not for those of us who led the war. We will accept whatever punishment you decide. But for the Vectari people, for the civilians who had no say in this war, for the children who never wanted to fight, please, let our species survive." The chamber fell silent. Every human in the room was thinking the same thing. They remembered the attacks. They remembered the fear. They remembered loved ones lost to Vectari brutality. Revenge would be so easy, so satisfying. They had the power to wipe out every Vectari world. They could make the entire species extinct. Specialist Jinna spoke, her voice cold. "You destroyed my home. I watched my family die. Why should I show you mercy when you showed them none?" Vecnor met her eyes. "You should not. I would not in your position. But perhaps that is the difference between your species and mine. Perhaps that is why you won and we lost." Commander Daewon looked at his fellow humans. He saw the anger in Admiral Tae Yang's face. He saw the sadness in Dr. Hana's eyes. He saw the conflict in Captain Jiwoo's expression. This was the moment that would define humanity's future. Would they choose revenge or mercy? Would they become conquerors like the Vectari? Or would they be something better? "Everyone out except the senior staff," Daewon ordered. "We need to discuss this privately." The Vectari were escorted to secure quarters. Then the human leadership gathered to debate. The discussion lasted for hours. Admiral Tae Yang argued for harsh punishment, for making the Vectari pay for every crime. Others agreed with him. The pain was too fresh, the losses too great. But Captain Jiwoo stood and spoke with quiet passion. "If we exterminate them, we prove that Thexral was right about us. We prove that when pushed, humans are just as brutal and merciless as any other species. But if we show mercy, if we choose to be better than our enemies, we prove something else. We prove that humanity deserves to lead, not through fear but through wisdom, Dr. Hana added her voice. The Vekthari started this war because they were afraid of what we might become. If we become genocidal conquerors, their fear was justified. But if we show mercy, we prove that their fear was wrong. We prove that strong species can also be good species. Engineer Sung-ho, who had built the weapons that could destroy the Vekthari, surprised everyone by supporting mercy. I built those weapons to protect humanity. We're protected now, we won. Using them now would just be murder. Even Specialist Jinnah, who had every reason to want revenge, spoke in favor of mercy. My family died in this war, but they died as humans with human values. If I abandon those values for revenge, then the Vekthari killed more than my family. They killed what made us worth saving. Admiral Tae-yang listened to them all. Finally, he sighed heavily. You're all too soft. But maybe that's not a bad thing. Maybe that's exactly what the galaxy needs. He looked at Commander Daewon. Make the decision. Whatever you choose, I'll support it. Daewon thought about everything humanity had been through. He thought about the fear, the losses, the desperate battles. He thought about Yuna, who died trying to make peace. He thought about the billions of refugees who lost their homes. He thought about every human who suffered because the Vekthari chose conquest over coexistence. Then he thought about what kind of species humanity wanted to be. Did they want to be remembered as the species that showed mercy, even to those who showed them none? Or did they want to be remembered as the species that chose genocide when they had the power to do so? The choice was clear. The next day, General Vecnor was brought back to the conference chamber. Commander Daewon stood before him, his expression unreadable. The Vekthari Empire is dissolved, effective immediately, Daewon said. All conquered worlds are free. All slave species are liberated. The Vekthari military is disbanded. Your warships will be destroyed or converted to civilian use. Vecnor nodded, accepting each term. War criminals will face trial, Daewon continued. Those responsible for attacks on civilian targets, for the murder of diplomats, for atrocities committed during the war. They will be judged by an independent council of multiple species, and they will be punished according to galactic law. Understood, Vecnor said. The Vekthari people will be allowed to survive. Your civilians will not be harmed. Your children will not be punished for the crimes of their leaders. You will be given assistance to rebuild your society, but you will do so under human protection and guidance. You will learn to coexist peacefully with other species. You will never again wage war of conquest. Vecnor looked up, surprise clear in his eyes. You are sparing us? We are choosing to be better than you, Captain Jiwoo said. We are choosing to prove that strength and mercy can exist together. Vecnor bowed his head. We do not deserve this kindness. No, Admiral Tae-yang said bluntly. You do not. But we are not doing this for you. We are doing this for us. To prove to ourselves and the galaxy that humanity fights to protect, not to conquer. The terms were agreed upon. The Vekthari Empire ended not with fire and destruction, but with words and wisdom. It was the first time in galactic history that a species with the power to commit genocide chose mercy instead. 5 years passed. The galaxy changed in ways no one could have predicted. The freed species that the Vekthari had conquered formed new governments. Trade routes opened. Cultural exchange flourished. A new galactic council formed, bringing together species from across known space to discuss common challenges and opportunities. Humanity was invited to be a founding member of this council. Not because they were the strongest military power, though they were. Not because they had the best technology, though they did, but because they had proven they could be trusted with power. They had shown that strength without mercy was just tyranny, but strength